in the dark where trust betrayed. A suitcase held the final plea. Now echoes haunt my memory. I said I forgave, but the pain remains. For every mark, for every chain, the hurt we carried, the lines we crossed, a shattered bond at such a cost. In the shadows of the night, a voice was lost, a fading light. No intention to break or bind, but what we left, a tortured mind. I thought of wrongs, the scars he made, the battles fought and dues unpaid. But as he called, I turned away. Regret now haunts the light of day. Forgiveness spoken, but heavy lies. The truth of love wrapped in goodbyes. A life now gone, a fate unknown, a lesson learned, a heart of stone. In the shadows of the night, a voice was lost, a fading light. No intention to break or bind, but what we left, a tortured mind. In the shadows of the night, a voice was lost, a fading light. No intention to break or bind, but what we left, a tortured mind. We played a game and here I stand, a final plea in empty hand. Forever haunted by the face left behind in a suitcase.
Judge, oh, isn't it grand? With words flowing smooth like a river they flow. Dear Judge Cranic, here's what you need to know. Oh, Sarah Boone, what a witty gal. With her clever lines, she's got 'em all, pal. In the courtroom drama, she takes the stage. Her letters a hit, a true literary rage. Your Honor, I swear I'm really quite nice. You wouldn't believe my bacon, oh, it's real ice. I'm sorry for trouble, I promise to mend. Just give me a chance, I'll be your best friend. Oh, Sarah Boone, what a witty gal. With her clever lines, she's got 'em all, pal. In the courtroom drama, she takes the stage. Her letters a hit, a true literary rage. She wants a new start, a chance to rewind, with a sprinkle of humor and heart intertwined. So Judge Cranic, read it with glee. Sarah's here shining, just wait and see. Oh, Sarah Boone, what a witty gal. With her clever lines, she's got 'em all, pal. In the courtroom drama, she takes the stage. Her letters a hit, a true literary rage. I swear I'm really quite nice. You wouldn't believe my bacon. I'm sorry for trouble, I promise to mend. Just give me a chance, I'll be your best friend. Oh, Sarah Boone, what a witty gal. With her clever lines, she's got 'em all, pal. In the courtroom drama, she takes the stage. Her letters a hit, a true literary rage.
You're listening to FFOP Radio.
Reach the
Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Dave. Excuse me. This is FFOP Radio. Allow me to do this. Welcome to it. What are we doing here? Well, you might know, but first, let me introduce you to my co-host and producer, Krista, who's right over there off camera.
Hi.
And we'll be doing a lot of the heavy lifting for this episode. So, obviously, we're always the last of the party because everybody's already done videos on this. But we, or Krista anyway, got her hands on a copy of Sarah Boone's letter from prison to Judge Cranick. Mm-hmm. So just to unpack this a little bit, because I feel like it needs just a little context, a lot of this is going to be plagiarized from her weird thing she did on the stand, right? Where she read the thing and was like, my stab wound, you know what I mean?
It's like, her sentencing hearing. It's from her sentencing hearing, but like she added some stuff at the beginning and she didn't read the whole thing. And she brings that up. I
can't believe, obviously, she had to, there must have been some decorum in her to be like, oh, well, the whole family's here. Maybe I'll shut up about a little bit. But anyway, let me also welcome everybody. Tony, Brick, Dory, Jameson. Thank you for showing up. Jameson says, did the letter say I'm never going home? I'm going to die. Please don't hurt me.
Probably not. I haven't read the entire 28 pages. But it starts off, it's a winner.
So this is it. We're doing a live reading. Krista is reading it, live and in color. I'm going to be stopping to annoy her, like I
quite
usually
often.
Do with videos. And Brick says he hasn't watched it yet. He's been waiting for us. So yeah, we're all going to be, everybody, the three of us anyway, brand new experience. At least maybe 40% brand new, because again, a lot of it happened on the stand, if you saw that.
And also David's in charge of the chat because I'm reading this, so just know that.
Just know I'm gonna try. What's up, Rachel?
Hi, Rachel. Okay, are we starting? Am I gonna start reading?
Yeah, this is, again, just to preface, this is the Boone letter, guys.
Yep. December 6th, 2024. Mr. Michael Cranick. She doesn't even call him Judge Cranick anymore.
Yeah, she's down. Like, this is, not to liken it to a true crime case, but Colonel Russell Williams with Jim Smith interviews him. He goes, hey, Russell. Like, not Colonel.
Right, no.
What's his nuts? He's, hey, Russell.
Hey,
Go
Russell.
ahead and sit down. You're a murderer.
I am enclosing, please, my complete statement to you and the world as I partially read during my sentencing hearing. By my reserving particular parts of my very true and meaningful statement, I was hoping to have been graced with your forgiveness, understanding, and consideration in any level or degree.
Not for nothing, but like forgiveness is not something that you can just are entitled to. Like, I don't understand. But that's the thing with Sarah and her ilk. There is no, everything's a transaction. In a way. So she goes, hey, I forgive you. It's kind of like Diane Downsy a little bit. She goes, I forgive you. And I know Jesus forgives me.
Oh, there's a lot of forgiveness in this.
The implication being like, hey, if you, since Jesus got on the Sarah Boone bandwagon, the Diane Downs bandwagon, you'd be a fool not to too, right? Because we say separation of church and state, but here we are. Yeah, 28 pages.
For me, unfortunately, and regardless of when I had... her handwriting is atrocious. Whom I had speak on my behalf. Sorry. For me, unfortunately, and regardless of whom I had speak on my behalf, or the number of your ignorant underlined mind was already made up.
But not for nothing, right? Like all of the people who came in to speak for Sarah have known her in the last 18 months.
Seriously.
So what credibility? That's your first credit card as an 18-year-old, bitch. You've got zero credibility.
Yeah.
Dear Judgy Wudgy, says Ryan, I think you're cute. Do you like me? Circle yes or no. XOXO, Sarah Boone.
By your clear error underlined and underlined full-blown unfair bias against me since your involvement in my crucible case as a whole, I have been unsuccessful in receiving anything from you as a supposed fair and neutral judge, except for underlined your wish that I spend the rest of my life in prison.
And that's the thing too, right? Like, because it's not. He broke his back for this woman, like almost literally, but
8
mostly
lawyers.
figuratively. 8 lawyers,
5
and
years.
the constant, like, yeah, they have been in each other's face for the past 5 years. So, like, but that again, all of this is going to boil down to when you're like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and you're a narcissist. Like, nobody can do enough for you. So. That's the thing. Like, she's also living on such privilege. Like, even though this is a pretty heinous crime, like, how long does it take to go through the prison system? Because, like, certain people get cut more slack than others. So, like, you know, especially when we're 5 years after the fact and 9 lawyers and like, we almost were able to measure Sarah Boone in presidents. Anyway.
Please know and always remember, Mr. Kranick, I forgive you, still and sincerely. Please understand also, the judge, according to Cicero, quote, is never to lose sight that he is simply a man and that he cannot exceed the power given to him by his commission. That not only power, but public confidence has been given to him, that he ought always rely very seriously to attend not to his wishes, but to the requisitions of law, of justice, and religion.
So first of all, what's up, Cookie? Welcome. Yeah, so Rachel says still no understanding of how trials work. Judge Kranick is not the jury.
He didn't do it. He sentenced her.
Right, and but that's the thing. Since she's stupid and she's like her own lawyer, or you know, was forced almost to be pro se.
Yeah.
Like, you'd understand that. Like, you have to. It's not the judge. Maybe that's her problem too. Like, what do most people think the jury is for if not that? I assume since nobody writes, nothing has come out, and if it were a major thing, I feel like I would have heard about it. Like, no one's writing their judge after the fact to be like, that was unfair, bro. Like, it was 12 of your peers.
Right. Like, he didn't decide. He didn't, like, hand pick the jury. The state and defense did.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. This feels like a more eloquently worded dressing down that, like, some white trash mom would give to a Burger King employee for, like, putting onions where there shouldn't have been, or vice versa. Like, take that string of whatever aimed at that kid and just, like, zhuzh up the vocabulary a little bit with, you know, by way of a straight A student.
I mean, yeah.
And this is exactly that. This is like, I want to see your manager Karen type attitude.
Mm-hmm. I am excited in my appeal, which speaks for itself. My case law as well, in which I am extremely proud to have achieved and will continue doing so now that I am no longer in your corrupt court and free from your malevolent judicial grip.
But, like, how do you... Cookie, the answer to that is the pinned comment. So Judge Kranick, according to her, at least this is how I'm interpolating it, right? Was so oppressive that all of her book learning while behind bars, that 5 years to get her law degree as a jailhouse lawyer, his oppression was so complete that, like, she now has to go somewhere else and get a better education because he was just stomping out her shit.
Right. You know what surprises me, and maybe they tried this behind closed doors, but I'm surprised they didn't try and get a new judge due to the fact that he sentenced her brother.
I don't think that's a conflict of interest.
No, I'm sure it isn't, but I'm surprised they didn't try.
That's
unless they did, and
no, because we would have heard about it. There's no way. No lawyer in their right mind would ask for that. I feel, and, like, not even, like, the dumb ones, and, like, because what's his name? Her last lawyer,
Owens.
He was throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick.
Yeah,
and you can't be like, well, you told her brother to go to jail too, and so.
This portion is titled Sarah Boone versus State of Florida.
Oh, so that was all the prologue.
That was all to Judge Cranick at this current time.
That was the Star Wars
But-
opening credits roll in. That
but-
was the mole man scientist exposition at the beginning.
But down a little farther, she talks about black robe disease. So it goes back and forth.
Black robe disease.
Yeah. So Sarah Boone versus State of Florida. I also have added to my statement as well, or as a result of your blindness and impartiality, foremost your disgust in me as being an outspoken woman, determined defendant, and proactive client, hoping the next time you put on your listening ears and do not unfairly oppress the next as you have so blatantly done me.
But here's the thing. Where's the oppression, right? Like now this is semi-new because I don't remember her being oppressed or bringing up oppression in those 5 years.
So like the state, I mean, they just said the facts.
Right. Like,
But to her, they snippeted out the parts of the videos and stuff that made her look bad.
Joseph says next she's going to address him as Judge Cray Cray. But yeah. Oh my God. This is why it confuses me when like people get mad or glad about the president because they control very little.
Right.
Like what they do affects the economy in like such nuanced ways. Like they can't drop the price of something just because they say they can. Like, and that's what Sarah thinks that Judge Cranick is. She thinks that he's like this God king who exerted some sort of psychic oppression over her because there's no evidence and or mention as to anything specific. Just general oppression.
Yeah, no,
like
just
general
general
oppressive disorder.
women.
She said, Rachel says she can't address him anymore. Case is closed. Yeah, right.
Right.
He probably just forwards all her shit directly into. Thank you, Kookie. Directly into his shredder, like his secretary. She's like, another boon.
You will never admit your many judicial errors, nor will the prosecutors theirs, and I will never admit oh my God, her writing, and I will never admit to what you have wrongfully accused me of and judged me as. I am not a murderer. I am a survivor. Sarah Boone.
I mean, come on. This is the thing. It's picking at the reality of the situation, which is my favorite type of fiction, right? Like H.P. Lovecraft is one of my favorite authors. And the way he wrote blended fictitious events, items, and people with real ones. So that's what Sarah is doing here, it feels like. She's taking things that are facts and like weaving them into her like outer space, Spaceballs narrative.
Yes.
So Tanika 2 says she did say she was oppressed. Remember her ad for an attorney? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Invest in the oppressed.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But that's the thing. That's the first time it came up, right?
I don't know.
I want to say because like we watched the trial. I don't feel like that was ever like her attorney was never like, Your Honor, oppression.
No, they were
Objection?
so like gung ho on the spousal.
Battered spouse.
Yeah. So this next section goes on about all of the things about black robe disease. Black robe disease.
Is it a little bit like brown bag flu?
Arrogance in a judge or a slang term for a judge who, oh my God, it's like she had a stroke. Blah, 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 flaunts judicial power and dominates proceedings at the expense of the dispensation of justice.
He was such a soft-spoken man. Like,
Seriously.
he wasn't any of those yelling judges that you may or may not have seen if you follow true crime. Because, like, the court can get pretty emotionally charged. And I've seen defense, prosecution, and judges all, like, sort of lose their cool at one point or another.
Right. And especially like with sentencing, like I've seen like Daryl Brooks's judge, like she fucking railed in on him, basically saying like how shitty this was, like how terrible a person he is, and all Cranick did was, I am sentencing you to life in prison. Like he didn't say you're a bitch.
Yeah, like he bent over like maybe she's also working in the fact that like when Owens jumped on this runaway train, he didn't allow another 5 years for discovery.
Yeah.
But she's not going to bring that up, possibly. Again, I don't know.
Right. Impartiality is the first duty of a judge. Before he gives an opinion or sits in judgment in a cause, he ought to be certain and absolute that he has no bias for or against either of the parties. If he has any interest, even the slightest in the cause, he is disqualified from sitting as a judge, and when aware of such interest, ought to lawfully and justly refuse to sit on a case.
Right. This also feels a little bit like projection because she's always the straight A student and like excels at everything. Like she's the one sitting with no credentials, like nothing. Aside from being a straight A student in high school, she has nothing to her name. And yet she's like coming at a guy who had to get like, go to law school, pass the bar. And then once he was a lawyer, take that step up to judge.
Yeah.
So he's like several miles above her, but she's projecting as if, again, like he's just a kid working the fryer at a McDonald's. And she's like,
right.
Brick says, I feel like she is having a stroke while writing this.
Her handwriting, like, part of me kind of feels like.
See you next Tuesday, says Janice.
I'm 100% sure that liver lady or kidney lady or whatever was helping her write this.
Right. So Starseed says in the chat, Sarah lectures us on justice, copied out of a book because she didn't have that book. So yeah, she's no better than like any other YouTube scumbag who like poaches somebody else's script and changes it a little bit, like through Chat GPT.
Yeah, she had the DV book, and then she's actually quoting the Bouvier Law Dictionary, the 2012 edition.
Oh, 2012. That's recent.
Yeah. So she talks about, what the judge might not be impartial, yada, yada, yada. And then from that law dictionary, I'm not going to read all that because it's all just.
Well, so Rachel, to address your comment, she says, I really got the sense that she's embarrassed. She's angry at all the people who embarrassed her and her own actions. I would agree with you. However, I think it's equally likely that her ego remains unshattered. And this is just like what, popular or, common parlance now online. She's smoking the copium. Like she knows, like, that's the thing. You can't look into someone's head and go like when someone says they're a vampire, you can't look into their brain and know for 100% fact that they don't believe they're a vampire because they can't. Like Sarah is in that category where she's going to spend the rest of her life in prison, but there's no way she can take responsibility for that at all. Even though whether or not she knows she is responsible and this is just because she turned down that plea deal for 15 years, which would have been like 8 more in the can.
When was the O.J. Simpson trial?
It's like 96.
She has a quote from it.
God. Please tell me if it's a glove reference.
No, it's about black robe disease. Whoever Murray Richtel from The Simpsons trial in 1996 says, but at the risk of practicing judicial centricism, a word I have coined in this presentation, others have called it black robe disease. Whether he was correct or not in my behavior, it is widely accepted that judicial behavior affects this jury. That's from the Simpson trial.
Right. But that's the thing. The most outrageous thing he did was like bring in a Circle K Big Gulp. Like if you followed the case, and I'm sure you did, like the only thing I would say is like off-putting or weird was like his little 3-headed tribunal next to him, which were all law interns. It just still felt weird. Or the fact that he would bring in like a beat up old mug that probably kicked around his garage for 40 years. Mm-hmm. Like that's as far as like his outlandish behavior goes, aside from like every once in a while resting his chin on his thumb.
Right.
Sarah reminds me of a batch high school girl who bullies the cripples.
Oh yeah.
Totally. Absolutely.
But she also wants to help them because she always wants to help the people below her, like her deaf animals and people in prison.
She would be like the toxic mean girl in all the schoolyard cartoons where like if your main antagonist of the series is a girl, she'll have like a toady, like your Smee types, someone who will take an endless amount of abuse.
Yeah. And then she has another quote. And then there is the worst of judicial ailments.
So real quick, just to address this, Ryan says it was between probably spanning 94 to 95, the OJ trial. I guessed at 96.
Oh, she wrote 96 on here.
Well, I'll be damned. Who am I going to trust, Sarah Boone or Ryan? I trust Sarah. It's 1996.
And then there is the worst of judicial ailments, the black robe disease, which is otherwise known as arrogance. This is taken from A Practical Guide to Becoming an Emotional Genius.
Yeah, Rachel says she's like a villain in a German bedtime story.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, swap out some like very loose details and you have Hansel and Gretel, but it's just Jorge and himself. Like, he didn't get whisked away to a gingerbread house and thrown into an oven. He got thrown into like a Boone's Farm whitewash of his mind and then, into the suitcase.
Yeah. Do you want me to read the other quotes about arrogance and black robe disease from a couple of other trials? They basically all say the same thing, that the trial judge has to have... I
don't hear the quotes because that's not her. She just pulled those. I want to hear
about
whatever book's words.
Kinsuko... How do you say that gold thing? Kinsukuroi? The art of Japanese style, the ceramic thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to say the word again. Means to repair with gold. This is her writing now. This is like her, whatever she read. In this tradition, when a ceramic piece breaks, an artisan will fuse the pieces back together again using liquid gold or gold dust lacquer. So rather than being covered up, the breaks become more obvious and a brilliant new piece of art emerges from the brokenness.
The problem is, it has to be like just broken, not warped from the factory. Number two, you need money to pay for an artisan,
right,
to fix it. So like your lawyer, you paid nothing and you got what you got.
Yeah.
And it has to be worth fixing. Number three, right? Because like if it's not a family heirloom and there's not like, like George ruined all her family traditions somehow by just existing, like that is a terrible analogy, but it's only apt because it's the exact opposite of reality. And that's what she's clinging to. It feels like she's a Bizarro World person who snuck into our dimension along with Bizarro Superman or however he got here. And like, nobody caught her until now, and they go, that's crazy.
Yeah. It embraces flaws, weaknesses, and imperfections, and also teaches the essence of resilience. Every crack in a ceramic piece is part of its history, and each piece becomes more beautiful because it has been broken. This is the wisdom of Kinsukori. We're going to call it that. In my wisdom, and with all of my repairs, then, now, and ongoing, God is, has been, and will always be my artisan. All of my gold is forgiveness. This has held me together, made me shine brighter, and overcome the damage caused by Jorge Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Judge Wooten, who I totally forgot about, and Judge Kranick, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation,
scoundrels,
ongoing constitutional rights violations, second-degree murder,
social
forced
media
into being pros.
Pro se.
Pro se. Sorry. Yeah, she didn't. There was no space between pro and se.
My God, like, I just don't understand what. I mean, here, boil it down. Obviously, we're going to read it all, but boil it down. What was the motivation for this letter? Do you think? Like, basically, like getting something hand delivered to the person you think is the most corrupt person in your sphere. When has that ever worked? Like, when have you ever, like, outside of Scooby-Doo, where you catch the villain with like a literal bolo or something,
right?
And you pull their mask off, and the police are there already, and they go, "Oh, you got me." Like, when was the last time you walked up to someone, laid out all their flaws or faults or, however your twisted mind runs, and you go,
well, this is post-sentencing. So, did she expect him to be like, you know what? I'll take it back. We'll white it out. You're free to go.
yeah, that's the only injustice in her mind that you could perversely adjudicate to this. So Starcy says, I'd say it was a successful outcome for Jorge after all her legal wrangling trying to squirm out of her crime. She's a piece of work. Repaired with fool's gold. Nailed it.
Oh, yeah.
I know pyrite melts very well, but that's a good analogy.
That's true.
Brick says the letter was to make sure her thoughts. Oh, yeah. She was whatever, thought she was smart, not smarter than him, blah, blah. So I think, Brick, you might be honest on something. She knew probably this is going to leak to us scoundrels on social media,
yeah.
right? Us dirty, dirty trolls. So the fact that we're reading this right now is sort of fulfilling the prophecy of her. But, I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah. Just as gold is very precious, forgiveness is invaluable. And then it seems to skip a page because it starts off as sleep because I had to go to work on my son's field trip the next day. I think her pages got mixed up.
I had to go to work on my son's field trip. That's a weird, you're being a chaperone, right?
Right. For ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture, destroying the television we watched together. Okay, so she's just talking about all the shit that Jorge did and how she forgives him, I'm guessing. Because the pages are definitely... Oh, yeah. Okay. Nope. I found page 2. Forgiveness is not an attempt to change or forget who, what, or how you've lived through to be so gold, but an act of grace, humility, and considerable self-composition to be set free from sorrow. Withholding forgiveness denies your brilliance and addresses greater grief and deeper heartache, irreparable cracks on top of the already that no one deserves.
I don't know. Here's the thing. You know that meme picture of the barrel and this dude, there's a mine shaft essentially down to the center of the earth. That's what this feels like. It's like the last gasp, if you will. Maybe if you're a fisherman, you land that big mouth bass and it's on there, you're going to hit it with the oar and you realize there's only a few seconds of life left. So you just sort of let it play out. Mm-hmm. That's what this is. It feels like Sarah's on the deck of a boat and some dude in a bucket hat covered in flies is just waiting for it to die down. He's like, I don't have to do shit. I just got to wait for the time to run out on this thing's clock.
Withholding forgiveness denies your brilliance and adds even greater grief and deeper heartache, irreparable cracks on top of the already... Oh, wait, I already read that. Did I read that? No. She wrote it twice. Cool. Sorry. Above all, when you let go of blame, misunderstandings, excuses, give up your anger, and cease from resentments, this is forgiveness. And when you forgive, you heal, and when you heal, you move forward.
Let me ask you something in the chat, guys. Have you ever been in that situation where you find something that you feel improved your life and then you become a zealot for that thing and a proselytizer for that thing? At most, you come across as genuine but annoying, and at worst, you're Sarah Boone here. Because nobody wants to be, talked down to and be like, hey, I forgave you, and here's why you should, because it's the bigger and better and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
It's like every religious pitch you've ever heard. It's every car salesman. They're trying to upsell you or I don't know, get you on their level by any means possible. But this feels so clunky and terrible.
Yeah. My gold begins with Jorge Torres, and every time he slapped me, kicked, punched, spit on, R-word, stabbed, choked, laughed at, pushed, pulled, dragged, whipped, tripped, stolen from, lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded me, made me cry every time he tried to end me, defeat, or destroy.
How is it that I obviously, because when you're sitting there with nothing else to do, it's easy to come up with a list of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Do this, people. I don't care where you are or if you feel like you'll be in criminal trouble. It's just a useful skill. Get good at picking 3 of a kind of something. Like, let your mind work on working in the rule of 3s, because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to go, well, and blah, blah, and then stand there with your dick in your hand. Like, because comedy or whatever, it's always nice to punctuate in 3s. Don't do like Sarah does and like string out like a dictionary of verbal diarrhea. You want to go, blah, blah, 1.1, 0.2, and then a hard out with the 3. And you go, huh? But we see so many people up on the stand or in interrogation rooms where they go, I wouldn't do that, number 1, because I don't want to get with a child. Number 2, nothing sexual would ever happen. And number 3, the other 2. Yeah, so I struck for this, but she killed him. She should be seeking forgiveness, not patronizing your victim. Yeah, that's the thing. You can't like rub your forgiveness in someone's face and be like, now you got to pay it forward, bitch. And I'm right here.
Right.
So Hannah's family walked out of the beginning part of her speaking. Yeah, I'm glad. There was like, and that's the thing. She didn't cut much, at least as far as it's like whether it would make his family in agony or not. No,
she didn't cut anything about the family. She cut the things about all the lawyers that she talks about.
James says, are you saying I need 3 dicks?
Like a hydra.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, maybe it would. I don't know. It's surgery.
She forgives him for wrecking their townhouse, breaking windows, punching holes in the walls, removing all the locks from all the doors, and sometimes the knobs altogether. So she had nowhere to be safe, including the sacred space of my son's room where he beat me bloody on his bed.
But she kept calling him back. That was exclusively the theme of our body cam grab bag video.
Yep.
Or episode. Like, every time she would kick him out, and then she would get back, and then 2/3 of the time we'd go, no, George, don't take him, but then be like,
I'll do whatever I can.
Mulligan, I guess.
For terrorizing and threatening my blind and deaf dogs by leaving the gate open I built to keep them safe, telling me he hoped I'd find their bloated dead body in the pond or scrape their remains off of the pavement, for kicking them off my bed and throwing across the room because they were trying to protect me.
But like, when did they have the dogs? That's just an honest question, because like when we watched the body cam footage,
the dogs were there.
Were they?
Yeah.
I don't recall hearing a caller or like...
They talked about the dogs a few times. One of them was usually upstairs, one was downstairs, because there were a couple body cam ones where they had the door open and she'd be like, oh my God, my dogs.
But whatever. It's like such a non-issue. Why do...
She's a saint.
Dog love is only good to other dog weirdos. Like cat love is only good to cat weirdos. Like, that's the thing. There's no there. This just feels like a book report written by someone who didn't read the book, but just like looked at the pages and wrote down the sentences that seem most appealing. One's blind and one is deaf. So maybe that's why they never made any noise.
Right.
I don't know, man.
I don't know how they were going to protect her.
It's so crazy. Like, and the fact that she's bringing up Jesus and all this stuff, she didn't even bring a prop Bible in like Daryl Brooks did.
Right.
Like, you couldn't be bothered to do that even, Sarah?
No.
Jesus.
I forgive, from George beating me like all the times their father beat their mother, for all the drunken rages and fist fights with so many neighbors when wandering into their apartments during hunting expeditions after I escaped. From drowning me in liquor and wine because I didn't want to drink, causing me to urinate on myself, then something.
Okay, so the only way you can make someone urinate on themselves is like if they say, "Oh, I gotta pee," is like you give them a good like gut punch,
right?
Then you'll make them pee themselves. I can't. But that's the thing. I'm not crazy. I can't imagine a situation in which I would look at a situation where I pissed myself and like at least one of my balls would have to turn solid brass before I would go, you did that. Like, your pants are wet. And you go, hey, what the hell, man? My pants.
I peed your pants.
Yeah. Good video, right?
Yeah. Getting two black eyes for making me experience what it is like to be sodomized, threatening to kill my friends and the neighbors when they checked on me to make sure I was alive and in one piece, for threatening to burn down our townhome and set my car on fire because I got a job, for holding me hostage on weekends. My son was supposed to come over by keeping my keys around his neck, my phone in his crotch, and a butcher knife stuck in the middle of the table.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Since we, you in the audience and everybody in the courtroom saw the body cam footage where, like, he was constantly, like, denying injury and just letting himself get whipped away and never having any evidence of any of this anywhere.
Right.
Darcy said Sarah's entire life is a laundry list of wrongs done only to her. Yeah, she's totally insufferable. But that's the thing. When you have that victim mentality, your currency is not money or the coveted cigarettes, like, most criminals love to trade things for. It becomes other people's, on a sliding scale of, like, empathy to gullibility. It's like you can be a successful person in the world of business via skills and other such things, education. Or you can just whine and have a mental breakdown on a streaming social media platform and beg for dollars because it's easier than going to the street corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For stabbing me in the leg and not letting me call 911 for an ambulance or seek help, where I nearly bled to death until I concocted a lie to save him from being arrested.
Nearly bled to death. Do you think she lost, what does the human body hold? 7 liters? What do you die at? If you lose 3, 4, maybe less? I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but at what point? Like, I had a nosebleed so bad that I got lightheaded because I feel like it was, so heavy that I was like, this is a problem. I'm losing consciousness. Like, how? Again, the human body holds.
It does, but I mean, I'm not saying that this happened to her, but if you get the artery in your thigh, like, that'll bleed out fast.
But I feel like she got stabbed in the calf.
It's in the. I don't know where it was.
When she points to her leg in the interrogation footage, it's in, like, the back of one of her calves. And that's what I think it was. It was like his drunken, like, stabbing her with a pen to try to get that Pen 15 Club coded membership.
Allegedly.
Again, I'm not a doctor, but, like, I feel like if you're losing enough blood to, like, fear exsanguination, like, even George would be like, oh, shit, because you would be just drenched in the shit.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. For destroying my phone with a hammer because my son called, for me experiencing ever being arrested, and after today, prison.
It's traumatizing to be arrested after second-degree murder, you guys. It's like, trauma.
For beating me almost blind, crushing my occipital lobe. For having me experience what I...
So she also had a copy of Grey's Anatomy open in the jail cell.
Right. For having me experience what it means to see stars, like in the cartoons where a character has a tall lump on their head. I had too many times.
Listen, I've hit my head hard enough that I saw stars, but it wasn't like cartoony. But shut up, Sarah. Botanica says, oh, why didn't these neighbors come to the trial, right?
Right. There was one. That poor little old lady.
Eli obviously would have come. Kim, not so much, because, Kim is just automatically not a nice person.
But Eli, he's here illegally.
Eli and Kim won't let me take a shit in their house.
Dragging me downstairs by my hair in the middle of the night just to sit next to him. For taking my car, driving drunk with my debit card to buy more alcohol while I slept, even after I kindly explained the importance of my car to take my son to school. Foremost. She loves that word. Foremost.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
She likes the non-compos mentis too.
Me to work and he to his batterers intervention classes and probation officers meetings.
That's a classic though. Like her mentioning of the batterers intervention class takes me back 5 years to the interrogation footage because it played a major role there too. God, I can't believe this case is old enough to give me nostalgia. It's weird.
for causing me so much trauma.
Okay, really quick, because Brigden brings up something. It says his wife sliced an artery in her wrist by accident and managed to drive 5 kilometers home before making it to the hospital for surgery, and it looked like a murder scene. Took hours to clean up. Yeah, so imagine with Sarah Boone getting that, whatever, allegedly or possibly, her stab wound was mentioned as a result of broken glass outside in a drunk fight. And it was, okay, so that's what Starseed said. It was maybe a piece of glass from a drunk fight. Possibly, I believe you.
Yeah.
Either way.
I mean, when I was pregnant, had a hemorrhage and there was a lot of blood and I got very lightheaded. But I didn't die.
Really quick, Tanika brings up a good point. Why did she need to use the neighbor's toilet? Because if she says that there's 2 bathrooms in her house, the upstairs one and the downstairs one.
Weren't they doing work on something in her townhouse? And so they didn't, I don't know if they didn't have water.
Bathrooms?
They may not have water.
But then what's the strategy there? Like, if you don't have water, living in the same complex, you're going to go to your neighbor? No, it doesn't make any sense.
No, they were doing work in her townhome. They could shut off her water. I don't know.
Don't speculate wildly. Leave that to yours truly.
For destroying my reputation and integrity, for my M for murder or scarlet letter, not letting me feel safe to live, talk to other people, spend time with my son, have a job, friendships, simply go to the bathroom with the door closed, or go to sleep soundly or comfortably.
George sounds like a 5-year-old.
I will forgive George for lying, for him trying so many times to end me with his terrifying love.
My terrifying love.
His terrifying love. I also forgive the Torres family, his mother and father foremost, also his 2 ex-wives and daughters, all for knowing who George was capable of and has done in the past, his history of violence and where he learned it, then keep turning a blind eye when I would ask for help.
Right, but this is also like a dick slap to the face of his family, too, because you can't, as much as we would like this, people don't pop out of a vacuum. You have to essentially blame the people who raised them, if not only by implication, by outright, direct, like Sarah did, direct confrontation, where you go, why couldn't you raise a better son? And that's why I had to suitcase him. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But when do you start? When does the chain of pointing over your shoulder to the generation behind you end? Right? Like, when does? Because we talked about this before, like, especially in the body cam footage, he kept coming back. Sarah would call, and he would come back.
Right.
So I don't know. It feels like the proverbial fox getting caught in the same trap, and like the same 12-year-old up the road, letting him go every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Terrifying Love is actually a book on battered spouse syndrome, says Rachel. Right. So she probably totally ripped that off.
Yeah, that's.
Well, I mean, I don't know what book she has
that was the book
or
we
had
talked
access
about.
to. Oh, that's the one?
Yeah.
Oh, hot damn. There you go.
All of her siblings, including all of his siblings, including something Torres, Farrell, I don't know what his name is, who is, she said this at the trial or at the sentencing too, but now it's underlined, who is now on his way to prison for stabbing the mother of their baby in the side of their head. For everyone who knew what George was doing to me, sometimes how and when, but allowed and enabled, I forgive them for caring too late.
Right, but right. God. Like, it's basically one of those backhanded, like, whatever, like, it feels like the cliche concepts of like the toxic backhanded compliment mom.
Yeah.
That got like yoked out, where it's like, oh, you're so whatever, but it's always delivered on the tail of an insult. Like,
yes. Or like a boss.
And this isn't even written as good as like a sitcom that should be on TGIF. This is so overt. Like, the only subtlety that sneaks into Sarah's writing is the stuff she just straight up plagiarizes instead of like eat, digest, and then shit out a word diarrhea.
I hope they all ask themselves while quiet and comfortable in bed at night this uneasy question. What could I have done to stop this from happening to both of them? And after all the time Sarah tried to by asking for help from all of us and so many times. That was a weird. There were like 5 questions there, but like one question.
It's Danica says she forgot her oldest brother is in prison.
Right. That and Kranik was the one who sentenced him.
Maybe she doesn't forgive him. Possibly. But like, yeah, but there's no reason to bring up her horrifyingly tragic and whatever past.
No.
Because it's too close to George's.
Right.
She can't. But maybe that's what she's hoping for, is like just for people to forget things.
Well, but then have the doctor come and talk about her past to try and save her.
Okay, I scratch that because she wasn't even aiming that toward the jury. Because again, based on this letter, she's aiming this all at Kranik, who she thinks has say. Anyway, keep going.
Another great contributor of my gold is social media with its greed, insensitivity, deception, obvious exploitation, and advantageous gain from my criminal case as a whole.
Okay, real quick. 4 of those were synonyms, and I'm guilty of 1. I've not made a dime off of the Sarah Boone case, unless you count Cookie's donation. Once again, thank you, Cookie.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, but I don't know. I do this show mostly because I enjoy experiencing this craziness with other people. And when I watch it by myself or read it or experience it by myself, no one's around to be like, hey, yeah, or like offer other input. But again, it seems like we addressed this before. If you're going to have a long list, which I don't recommend, don't make 3/4 of them synonyms. Brick.
And for sentencing me by anticipation as a result of ignorance and hate conjured and fabricated by the organized crime that is social media, which condemned me in the court of global public opinion since the beginning. That was one sentence. It was 7 lines.
And here's the problem too, is like a matter of context, because with most cases we don't get any cases outside of Florida anyway that don't catch the mainstream public true crime eye. We're not going to see that. But if you record yourself doing the thing that you're doing, and then you pull a Prince Andrew level cataclysmic interview with 2 detectives, it's impossible not to at least infer from the situation that you're totally and utterly guilty.
Right.
But that's the thing. We keep coming back to this sticking point, or at least I do, because I can't, and most people don't either, based on commentary around the world. Because if you don't have that narcissism bred into you or worked into you, or however it gets there, all you can do is look from the outside in to that other person and go like, what the fuck?
Right.
Because it seems so counterintuitive. It's exactly the opposite of like human intuition.
Yeah.
Anyway.
My family law case is the new prey, waiting to be picked apart and pillaged from me being made infamous by social media in my criminal case. I'm sorry, but
scoundrels and pillaged.
Your family law case ain't doesn't matter anymore. You're in prison. You're not going to have custody of your kid.
Right. But that's the thing about this sort of person. I brought it up, Sarah, as a lol cow. So anywhere or in any facet of their life, they can exert any amount of control to swell their nuts or engorge their, they'll exert it because they need to feel like they have something over somebody else.
Right.
And when George was there, he was a built-in footstool because she always had a leg up on him.
Yeah.
Tanik says, I think it is a tick for her. like how much she twitches her mouth 3 times like a rat. The serial 3 synonym. She can't control repeating. Yeah, she's.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it's very lolcow. Like the constant repetition of the same, albeit slightly differently presented content.
Yeah. She does that tick like the Vander Ark lady.
Yeah. I'm not a huge proponent or whatever. I'm not pro body language analysis because I feel like that's a little bit of a bullshitty science. A lot like the polygraph test.
Yeah.
Because you don't, especially when you're pulling someone in off the street, like because you've never met them before and you're only meeting them because they're a murderer or accused or whatever, a suspect, you can't base their physical tics or mannerisms against any sort of standardized scale because how can you?
Yeah.
So Rachel says, yeah, counterintuitive, exactly. It's taken me this long to even start knowing how she's going to react. I don't understand her though. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. Social media has made me a pariah. It has caused me oppression and undeniable disadvantages, especially by broadcasting and manipulating my case online. My case is online. In my criminal case, as a result, my opportunities to be given a fair, proper, and uninfluenced successful conclusion was heavily depleted and poisoned. I forgive them. Also, all the media tycoons for not having a life of their own, trying desperately to make themselves seem so right by making me appear so wrong.
Do you think we're media tycoons, or is she talking about like the owners of Instagram and Facebook and like the Fox 10 YouTube
Probably
page?
them. We're the social media people, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm nothing. I'm rabble. Like I'm a nobody. But here's the thing. Here we are, right?
Here we are. Forgiveness for prejudgment, ridiculous theatrics, lies, maybe she's talking about you. Ridiculous theatrics.
But also, I wouldn't use prejudgment. I'd use prejudice. The prefix there meaning before, and
yeah, no, she says prejudgment.
Yeah, I would say prejudice, because if you have a prejudgment, you are prejudiced. You say, stop your prejudgment of me.
She also straight A student spelled ridiculous wrong. Lies, making and taking blood money from my and other misfortunes, accidents, and catastrophes. It's all over their hands and keyboards. And even after all that's
my keyboard's all bloody again. Stop talking about Sarah.
And after all that's been said and done, theorized, hypothesized, scrutinized, and blasphemed, in my case, still no one knows me.
Brick says, he's taken the write a letter to a person and burn it technique, but then sent it.
Yep. My gold also runs deep for my prior attorneys. Here we go. This goes about through all her 77,000 attorneys.
Attorney number one. He was a dumb bitch.
For my prior attorneys, Mauricio Padilla, who sold me the world with empty promises, then abandoned his responsibilities as my attorney after taking 2.5 years of my life, when finally realizing he was in over his head, all while hoarding JAC dollars to fund his staycation with his family when in town from Miami. For having resources ready and available, not allowing me to the clients to ever utilize, which could have greatly progressed my case and perhaps concluded, only for him to decide water parks, fine dining, and choice hotels were more important and on the GAC's dime.
So how the hell was she figuring out where he was vacationing and living? She's like a prisoner
the
in
kidney
prison.
Lady. She's finding his shit on Facebook.
So
trolling her lawyers. I don't know how long they've been in contact. 10 months, so probably not that.
I don't know, man. What else can you say at this point other than like it's a completely antithetical to reality situation? Mm-hmm. But then again, we have a flawed narrator too, so I can't even be like, I can't believe, because what the reality of the situation may be whatever. We don't know that because I don't care to know it necessarily. It's just the fact that if you look at someone's resume and they have no more than 6 months at a job on the last 10 jobs, this is a red flag.
Yeah.
And like, so Sarah's not even as good as like a noob, like a 16-year-old with a clean bill of health career-wise has a better shot than Sarah in like this metaphor.
Yeah.
And it's all because she like did it herself. Because again, we're going to circle back to this, and I'm sorry, but the delusion, right? The coping mechanism. There was no one in Sarah's life of authority, or at least what she thought was authority, right? Like her parents. Like if someone you respect or you feel you have a subservience to, or however you want to describe it, you sort of mold yourself to that person.
Yeah.
And it's like with our kid, like when he acts out, if you don't check that shit, you'll wreck that shit. And it just feels like whoever was in charge of Sarah, be they animal, vegetable, or mineral, every time she went ape shit or crazy or whatever, she got the care and treatment at Target. Mm-hmm. Every wish was fulfilled. Sorry, please come again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you imagine her in the next cube at work, says Tanika? Dear Lord.
Oh my God.
I mean, what work, right? Like, what is Sarah going to get out of bed every morning for? But like, yeah, being her neighbor, being her coworker, being anywhere in her life where you have to deal with her more than never, I can't imagine. Yikes.
I forgive Frank J. Bankowitz for committing perjury to the judge and on court record about my attempts to be a proactive defendant and client, inquiring about my discovery, then trying to communicate with no answers or correspondence in any manner for 1 full year and 2 months before I was able to finally meet with him in the courtroom, only to receive his motion to withdraw. Frank J. Bankowitz is forgiven for his greed in taking $15,000 from the JAC, who honorably aid indigent defendants as myself.
It's amazing how she's both like pro.
At least let me finish a sentence.
Just really quick. She's pro and against like the criminal justice system of Florida, because she's like, I hate you guys. You're corrupt as fuck. But this guy took $15,000 of your dollars. You corrupt fucks. Like, what's the thesis?
Right.
Gotcha.
Taking $15,000 from the JAC, who honorably aid indigent defendants as myself, for taking advantage of and robbing the justice system by lying and avoiding clients, taking their money and the JAC's. Period. That was one whole sentence. That entire thing about Frank Bankowitz was one sentence.
And again, like, even a high school student, like if you're writing an essay, you keep the theme on point. Like if you do that bubble tree or any pre-writing
the bubble tree,
you keep a theme and you don't flip-flop. So but that's the thing with the straight anus of it all, the straight anus of her life. How did she skip over like the most common of sense? Like, don't try to lambaste the thing and also like defend it from those wretched thieves who are taking money from a corrupt system.
Right.
Rachel says, what you just said about never being checked is exactly what I thought when she told the investigators, guys, this is killing me. Do I have to watch this?
Literally killing me.
Who raised her? Yeah, exactly, Rachel. Because no one comes out of a vacuum.
Yeah.
Like, who in Sarah's life got the ball rolling with the, whatever, Sarah, I'll placate you as long as you shut the fuck up.
Right.
Great anus.
Winston E. Hobson receives my forgiveness, who also unethically perjured himself to the judge.
Mea culpa.
And on court record about all the progress and attorney work he did in my case for the 2 months he was court appointed as for his allegations of my supposed unethical requests, which meant me asking about my discovery and trying to have him file a motion for my lawful inclusion to my pretrial conferences cited under FRCP discovery rule, blah, blah, blah.
Doesn't it feel like she burned an entire year just trying to get a box of paper delivered to her cell?
Yes. I wanted to be included in my case and no new progress from being excluded by Bankiewicz and Padilla over 3 years prior. Forgiveness also in telling me he would return in a week with my discovery, only to receive his motion to withdraw in the meantime, still not receiving my discovery, and I filing my own motion enabling me to go to all my hearings, including my pretrials.
Do you imagine that Sarah has it in her head that like when the gavel goes down, you hear the you can hear one of three things, like guilty, not guilty, and you're forgiven? Mm-hmm. And like get a little hair tussle and say, get out of here, you scamp.
Get out of here.
You leathery muppet.
Continued forgiveness in his greed and selfish intentions, also for robbing the JAC and indigent defendants of $15,000 more for nothing, justifying any work he really did do in the handful of days he represented me as my attorney. Anything before I go on about Patricia?
No, I think I'm good with that guy.
Finally, and with all, this isn't finally like the end of the
Obviously,
thing.
no.
Obviously. Finally, and with all my gold received from this one, I forgive Patricia A. Cashman for her mean, snotty, egotistical attitude and not listening or caring that I finally received my discovery I kept asking her for, which she fully withheld from me, citing her ridiculous, still spelling ridiculous wrong, ridiculous something untrue reasons was because I saw with my first attorney 4 years prior, and while she being my present at the time attorney, I saw not one page of or any digital evidence of my discovery she prohibited me from seeing. That was a long thing.
Okay. Really quick. That whole sentence makes me feel like it's one of the most, I don't know, like the maybe you have a person like this in your life, someone who is so petty that like there's a $2 mail-in rebate and they take it deadly seriously and they want that $2 and they spend, because keep in mind, your time and energy aren't free. Like your existence shouldn't be just thrown out the window when you're not on a clock somewhere. But she seems like the type of person who would like look at the back of a product to see the questions, comments, and concerns to like really give them a piece of her mind as to how the company should be run.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Again, those people don't know who they are because in their world, and you've been in that situation, I guarantee you have, where someone comes and tells you a story where they are the villain and they don't realize it. We probably all have those stories peppered throughout our life because the human point of view is flawed and we like to rewrite history, so we get to be the victors. So it wouldn't surprise me if everybody had like between 5 to 10 stories where they tell them they don't realize they're the villain and no one around them is nice enough to say that.
Yeah.
But it just feels like every story Sarah tells, she is the dragon to be slain by the night, and it's just like flipping some birdage big time to the reader.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. Patricia A. Cashman is also forgiven for admitting I had a right to a bond I asked her for, so I could actually utilize one of my rights as opposed to having them always violated as prior and still ongoing. Then her deterrence of all of my opportunities to do so. This
is the type of person who throws like the word rape around where it never should apply.
That's why I said the R word before. Yeah.
Right. That's the thing. Like she goes like, this is like, nobody has ever been anywhere near that sort of trauma uses that word as freely as this. Like, I feel like Sarah could drop the word when someone steals a parking space from her at Walmart. She goes, "This is big box store parking lot rape." That's what it feels like she would do. Because, I mean, at least she has a little bit more decorum than to just like say that word repeatedly over and over again, because violate has more syllables.
Yeah.
And that super smart, right, guys?
Yeah,
One
straight A
syllable
student.
versus 3.
Yeah, I mean, her run-on sentences really show that she did really great in English.
So let's talk about George Lucas, says James.
For all her lies, condensation,
Condensation.
condescension, gross unnecessary arguments and anger that I asked any questions and wanted to understand, for her doing nothing other than give me an even harder time and request transcripts, then brazenly lie for over $16,000 for doing so, also from the previous resources provided from the JAC. I forgive her for being a liar and a bully.
Her letter reads more like a really bad Mojo TV listicle. Like, these are the top things you won't believe about how shitty my victimhood is. Like, number 1, I'm always getting fucked over by the cops. Number 2, when I call George and he comes over, the cops keep taking him away. What up with that? I'm a white bitch.
Right. Oh, I was waiting for you to read something. Forgiveness for all those who did not include me to receive my $15,000 share that I worked for when Judge Cranick forced me to be my own attorney to represent myself as pro se.
Right. Because sorry, just to stop you there. You have, like, I don't know if it's a right. I'm a stupid man. I'm a stupid man. But I know when I was learning about government, a speedy trial is guaranteed to you.
Right.
I feel like that pendulum swings both ways. Like the man under the blade in the Edgar Allan Poe story, you can go, well, the government can't unnecessarily jam you up and leave you in a prison cell for 5 years. But the swing side of that is you can't dick around and make toilet wine for 5 years and fire 8 lawyers.
Hey, look, and she found God again during those 5 years.
Mary Jane says, "Forgive me, Sarah, I hate you." No forgiveness needed. What a... Yeah, so also, Rachel Lee says, yeah, she uses basic bitch fancy talk.
Yeah.
Prior instead of before, utilize instead of use, and townhome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fucking condo. Foremost.
I guarantee she has a prison library available to her. She has the Merriam-Webster thesaurus.
Oh, yeah.
In her cell. Like when I'm heavy into writing, I keep that tab open on a browser.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to say the same thing over again. However, I don't make listicles of victimhood. So it fairly rarely comes up.
I actually and finally got my own discovery almost 5 years later, filed motions all prior should have done, making them the most expensive motions ever at over $46,000 between the 3 prior attorneys, Frank J. Bankowitz, Walter E. Hobson, and Patricia A. Cashman.
And look how it helped her case. She finally got access. It's like getting the Ark of the Covenant and opening it, and your face doesn't melt like those German soldiers. Except that shit did.
Would they have done so when supposedly representing me? The motions would have been priceless for the proper use of the JAC funds toward ethics, professionalism, honesty, and freedom.
Okay, so something's been niggling in the back of my mind. I think I finally got it. It's the same perverse, like, well, they're doing wrong too attitude where, it even goes back to the body cam footage where, like, they're here illegally, or like this person, right. Like when you're going down, if you're a scumbag, your intention and your mindset is to drag as many
everybody
poor
with
motherfuckers down with you as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know. I've never tried to make a case on the back of some other fool I'm looking to throw under the same bus. Because it's not like the bus isn't going to hit Sarah, right? Like it's come and gone and she's flat as shit. She's just looking to, as a corpse from, the street, grab some passerby by the ankle and hope that the next, one takes them out too. But it's
Sure.
like, no, it's not going to happen.
I honorably utilized my JAC resources and mentorship as a proactive, indigent defendant, avidly defending myself against the liars, thieves, and real villains in my criminal case. Who really is the criminal? The JAC can hopefully include their forgiveness for them also.
Do you think she became a weeb in jail? Because she's like most honorable.
Yes.
Like, this whole thing is so fucking farcical. It does feel like something that I could ask ChatGPT for, like if I log in and I go, hey, ChatGPT, I just got convicted of second-degree murder. I'm going away for life, but I feel like the judge was a bitch and he was really mean to me. Write that script. And here we are.
Here we are. Judge Wooten and Cranick, I have great forgiveness for also in not protecting me in listening to my valid request for judicial intervention so I could properly and fairly defend myself against my charges. Instead, I had to defend myself against the attorneys, all appointed by the judge and court, against their lies and exaggerations, reasons unjustifiable why they were really creeping away from the battlefield and abandoning their professional duty as my attorney.
From the battlefield.
Yep.
Like, this is so fucking dramatic. Again, I mentioned how she should have been in some sort of theatrical production because she's like a lot like Daniel Wozniak with his like, oh, madness and insanity and yada and the pixies and the mayflies. Like, Sarah could have taken this into some sort of usable theatrical thing. I don't know what it would be. Anything, really. Because she's just wasting it on all these people who are like, just fed up with your bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you want is people who don't know who you are.
Right.
So Rachel says she's an immediate snitch. Like the cops are going to say, fuck this suitcase thing. Let's go get Eli. Thanks for the tip. And they shut the door. And they actually give her a hug that day.
Right. Have a nice day.
For someone who is so forgiving, she has a lot of grievances, says Jameson.
Quite a bit.
Isn't that weird? She really tries to cash a lot of checks by writing checks she can't cash to people.
Yeah. Judge Cranick, I forgive you for not giving me any opportunity to stand at your pulpit, to stand at all to explain the real, truthful side of the story.
But what do you mean? That's what the trial was for. Just because he denied you standing at this, like at the foot of his cloak and like dab your mouth with it as you eat pizza. Like, what are you expecting? Like, you received a defense eventually, and that was what you were allotted. Like, it's not, you can't act like a preschooler and just say, fuck this court thing. Hey, daddy judge, I've been a bad girl, but I'll be better next time.
Right.
We're beyond that.
No. Yes. I believe if the justice system, including yourself, would and should have done any vital homework on the already almost see-through attorneys from being spread so thin and simply sending an email to care about their present workload, number of clients, trial schedules already in place before throwing another inmate defendant, unknowing client on their heaping unimportant pile of warm bodies, more taxpayer dollars could be conserved and less time consumed and wasted for everyone regardless of what part, I'm not done with my sentence yet,
I know.
they play in the supposed system of justice.
So, what she is saying is, like, how dare you hand out the unending amount of criminal cases, because they never do end, to one of the small pool of attorneys in the public defender's office. How dare you do that?
Yep.
If only you hadn't committed the crime, you wouldn't have to be taxing poor Mr. or Mrs. whoever the fuck.
Well, that, and like she's forgiving all these attorneys for being shitty, but not being like, I forgive you for the fact that you were too busy. Like, she's not forgiving them for, like, I understand that you had 800 people.
That's the thing. She doesn't understand.
Right.
She has no point of reference outside of her own, two eyes. She doesn't have any empathy, sympathy. There is nothing in her that connects her to anybody else, any other human on an emotional level.
Yeah.
It's all about the grift.
Yeah.
She can mess with George, exert her minimal power by calling the police on him, use his and her money on booze.
Well, like, did she take into account how many cases the judge has to deal with?
Right, but no one does. Like, that's the thing. Her argument is flawed. Like I was saying, you can't, like, crimes are going to be committed, and they have to, all the poor broke assholes who were, even though they were straight A students, they have no money,
right,
have to go to a public defender if they want representation. And it's not like they can say, well, we'll just hire another public defender.
We don't have the bandwidth right now.
You can't put Sarah into a basket and wait for one of the attorneys when they are lower on cases to come pluck her like
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Thomas Mahoney, the alley boy, says, "Oh yeah, babies, it's crazy letter night." I fucking believe it.
Yeah, we're about halfway. We're on page 16.
Can't believe it.
My forgiveness is deepened for taking even greater time of mine away years by not caring to ask me anything about anything to understand, so you could just fully render your life-defining judgments and withhold any more bias and prejudice.
Okay, so I'm rethinking my theory. So two things have to happen, in my opinion, for Sarah to get where she is. You have to have neglectful parents. Mm-hmm. But they have to be neglectful, but also admonishing. I'm not sure how to say this. Like, they have to not care enough about you to correct your behavior, but also go the extra mile to, like, reward the lies.
Yeah.
Because if Sarah had not gotten so much mileage out of her bullshit, then I again definitely started with her parents, that just sort of filtered into reality, because we've talked about it on here before. But like the people who aren't worth your time in your day-to-day life, you don't try to make better. You don't try to make them see the error of their ways. No, you try to deal with them as little as possible, give them as short answers, yes or no answers as possible, mm-hmm. which then they can interpret as a win.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where we are. Like, it started way before we are now, and it's so ingrained. Like, Sarah's a giant sequoia tree. Like, her toxicity is in so many rings. If you were to cut her down, it would probably be some sort of national crime. Thomas says you guys can laugh at her, but when the Supreme Court comes down with a verdict to pick up the goddamn Eli troublemaker, you won't be laughing anymore. Eli and Kim. Jeez.
Foremost, Judge Cranick, I forgive you for kicking me when I was down and choking the life out of my constitutional amendments.
Like I did to George.
Most profoundly, my... something right to counsel as a result of my wholehearted use of my first right to free speech and being my own advocate, since no one else would be and received a paycheck for. In all of my free speech experience, well, man, she just is blending words together.
And like, what does it matter?
It matters to her. Because words matter. You used to talk about words and how words, language and like using too many words, it doesn't matter. Like, she just uses all the words to just have words on a piece of paper.
That's what stupid people do when you give them time to prepare. They read a
5
thesaurus
years.
and they go, oh boy, look at all these words. I'll use them all. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. In all of my free speech experience-driven letters, only for remedy in any collaboration, inclusion, receiving my discovery as an inmate, defendant, and client, not reversal of any attorneys to cause delays or any reason to excuse you may try to force on me and have already appropriately accused me of doing prior with your heavily insituated strategies of mine to try and deflect the glaring red flags, disappointments, and true crime in and of the justice system. This was definitely Kidney Lady's part.
This feels like trying to read a VCR manual for fun.
Some of her stuff doesn't make any sense.
Like, you know that gag from Beetlejuice where they try to read like the handbook of the dead and it reads like VCR instructions? That's how Sarah writes. It's just fucking nonsense. It feels like a Beck song, but it's not good.
Yeah.
So Rachel says, I think Sarah is actually stunted. I would have to agree. Like when we were little, really little, we came to develop our thoughts and feelings beyond ourselves. She never did that. I would have to agree.
Yeah.
There are some people who just don't think of it like this. When you in your formative years, probably between first and third grade, we all planted a bean in a cup of dirt.
Okay.
Because the thing there was to teach you the life cycle and yada, yada, yada. So that you get to fill out the little sheet that goes like bean, the root coming out, the stalk, and all the changes.
Okay.
Sarah was planted but never made it past the bean. She is just the bean of herself in what she thinks is just an oblivion of usable material, but never sent out any roots to learn and grow from existence, nor did she send up any shoots to sort of collect resources based on the effort of that action. She's a dry ass pinto bean in a Dixie cup of dry dirt that never sprouted a single fucking thing either up or down.
But she's a straight A student. Look at all these words. To this day and all forward, I do not forfeit my rights, any of them, ever, especially my right to to hold, maybe, outspoken, and write in my real life experience with the legal and justice systems. You weren't there, Judge Kranick, in anything. No meetings, phone calls, visits, and still took my rights and oppressed harder. Okay, when has a judge just kind of taken a phone call from an inmate? Like, really? Like, does that I'm assuming that doesn't happen.
No, obviously it doesn't. Like, how could it? That be a gross conflict of interest?
Right?
Like, hello. But number two, the thing is, it works back into how she was raised. Because she was unnecessarily entertained as a reasonable or, I don't know how you say it, like a real person.
Yeah.
Like if someone comes to you with a problem, you deal with it with the gravity that it deserves. It just feels like no matter what her problem was, she was always just given what she wanted and patted on the head because, but that's just how society has to work sometimes. If we all as a society like took it upon ourselves to like notice and try to fix other people, it would be a fucking catastrophe because nobody knows what somebody else needs. And that helping element of like, let me help you because I know better, sets up a dynamic that may or may not be true.
Right.
You may not know what is good or bad for somebody else.
Yes. Yeah. I must now defend myself against you, praying you do not care too late as all the others and retaliate further against me as a still proud citizen of the United States of America and freely, excitedly using my God-given rights to still try and defend myself to stand all the way up for you to remove my freedom altogether by allowing and approving my stab wound, bloody body parts, our words,
You
bumps,
approve my stab wound.
bumps, bruises, and all the rest of the beatings I endured.
Right. So Rachel brings up, a well-trodden point and well-trodden ground, but just a lot of people were raised worse than she was, and they're not wild now like Sarah. Agreed. Like Romulus and Remus raised by wolves. You think they would come up to be miserable, bestial things? No, they wanted to, found Rome, according to Roman mythology. But the moral of the story is, a lot of people come from a lot worse places. It's just, it only matters, or rather, you can only transform that into currency if you're looking to use it for sympathy. Mm-hmm. AKA, you want something out of someone socially, or you need to get out of a crime legally. You can only cash in your sad childhood, if it was there at all, and if you're not a liar, if you want to use it in the scummiest way possible.
Yeah.
Sarah doesn't understand that ex parte communication is not allowed with the judge. Yeah, obviously, you can't. Like Krennic's not gonna pick up his phone and be like, "Yo, go for Krennic," and it's not gonna be like, "Hey, it's me, Boone."
Hey, Boo.
I'm calling you on a recorded line from an Orange County jail. What? How did you get this number? Click. That sort of thing.
I hope you can finally see and understand just some of the pain from the extreme difficulties, obstacles, and unfairness, especially in my due process, you have added in my criminal case and use as an inmate, defendant, and client. All is forgiven.
Doesn't it feel like nothing is forgiven, though?
Oh, we're on the detectives now. For detectives Kopsel and Lowen, I forgive their... Oh, man, it's all cut off. Something. Demonization. Lies. Demonetization. Lies. Blacklisting, coercion, law-breaking, solicitation of my case before I even arrive at the corrections department to be booked and fingerprinted.
Wasn't it just a crazy coincidence that even before Sarah showed up, she was a victim?
Yeah, I mean, they told her she had to come in to get her phone.
Thomas says, I love that anyone in this court has to get jurisprudence scolding from the lady who asked what an objection was. Objection? What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Sustained.
This can be seen in my
Writing a letter back.
This can be seen in my unbeknownst interrogation video where I ask what they are doing, what all the pinging was. Man.
Pinging? My unbeknownst interrogation video.
Dinging? Pinging?
Anytime you're interrogated by police in a police station, just please, people.
Oh, they're texting.
You're on camera.
They're pinging. Their dinging was their texting. Their texting swarm.
Is the texting about me or? Oh no, I was getting a text. But what?
Well,
Chelsea nailing it.
Oh man, her handwriting gets real sloppy here. It's like she was, like,
real deep into the toilet wine.
Yeah. While I was sit there waiting to be arrested, which they knew would happen the day before, for Kopsel. I don't know which one that is. Chelsea something? What was Chelsea's?
I want to say Kopsel was Detective Scott.
Okay. For Kopsel, for bald-faced lying on the stand to the judge and court on record. Oh, it's Chelsea.
There you go.
She didn't tell me to come to the station to pick up my phone. Why else would I go? I didn't even know about the surprise interrogation.
Your Honor, my druggy friends told me that if you ask a cop if they're a cop, they got to tell you. And if they know they're going to arrest you, they have to give it to you in writing.
Right.
My druggy friends.
I forgive them for also lying how the news showed up to record my walk of shame, handcuffed and confused on camera.
Like every other criminal in Florida.
Right. I forgive them for trying to make me lose from the beginning by starting the unquenchable wildfire of sensationalism and distortion, ignorant hate, defamation, and greed by unlawfully broadcasting who they wanted the world to think I was by their schemes, learned lessons, and fraudulent stratagems from the school of manipulation and taking advantage.
This feels like, here's another metaphor for you. It feels like pick your favorite pope. It feels like the pope walking out into his balcony and just like hundreds of hairy heads and revelers coming to see him speak, right? And he just pulls out like a super soaker 1500 and starts hosing down the crowd. But instead of like holy water, it's his piss. And he's just spraying gallon after gallon of his piss onto the people.
Yep.
Does that hit home for anybody? I forgive you. Psh, you motherfuckers.
How much did they make off of me and still are calling and still are for calling it in, then something the curtain, removing the curtain to expose their personally twisted murdering monster. What?
Right. So Rachel brings up a good point. So many words, yet never feels like she gets to a point. And I feel like that's what we're all getting at here, right? That's the unscratched itch. This feels like Sarah went into a control room full of flashing lights and a button under plastic, right? And she flips up the plastic and her thumb keeps missing the button.
Right.
Like nothing is happening. It's a complete misfire. We're just like going through listicles of bullshit and like reading the thesaurus for scoundrels.
Mm-hmm.
So Mary says, "Oh, but I had a list of questions. Please stop forgiving. We know who you are."
When can I get to my list of questions? Also,
can I get to these? Oh, yeah, we'll get to those. Thanks.
I'm Detective Chelsea. Also, my forgiveness and greater gold comes from wondering why nothing viable in my defense was taken from my townhome, aka the crime scene, to aid in my truth, such as the butcher knife, 5-prong garden claw, or hammer under the table, together outside where George had easy access for use if I tried to leave or call for help while being held against my will during his rageful binges.
Here's the beautiful thing about reality, right? You can ask simple questions and the waveform collapses. It's not Schrodinger's cat. When Sarah says, "Why didn't they take the butcher knife?"
That's not how he died.
As far as I know, the butcher knife was only mentioned briefly and only from Sarah saying that he stuck it into a table. It never made any contact or was ever witnessed any violence or blood spillage.
Right.
So what, like, let's say Owen's got that knife and he goes, Exhibit A, the knife that Jorge stabbed into a table. Look at it. The implication speaks for itself. I know you're inferring this, jury.
Or my bloody pillowcase stained from me being backhanded because I hid the magnum-sized bottle of vodka from him. Why weren't any
Magnum
crime scene photos taken of holes patched in the walls or doors, some doors missing knobs and all locks George removed, cracked windows, broken furniture, obvious unnatural destruction in my townhome?
Unnatural. Like he wasn't a natural disaster. Jorge Torres Jr. was an unnatural disaster. Thomas says, I think the point is that she no longer has to be respectful to Kranik. And like all sociopaths, once someone's power over you or used to you has passed, they don't exist anymore.
Oh yeah.
But if that's the case, if Kranik doesn't exist, why is this letter here?
So the letter, he exists enough for her to be able to finally tell him how she feels with her sentencing stuff. Like this is all put together in one big letter.
Yeah, Sarah is a lolcow who goes back to Reddit to give the last word on a forum post. Mm-hmm. That's what this is. This is a Reddit post that she had to mail to a judge. And he just gets to go, huh?
Scan it in, Brenda. Yeah. How and why were these missed, uncared about, and not questioned so I could explain some of my terror? It makes no difference. All is forgiven.
Oh, makes no difference. Why did I bring it up? Why are we on page 20 of 28? Oh, just kidding. Mulligan, all's forgiven.
On to the prosecutors.
Gotcha, bitch. You read 28 pages.
Prosecutors, Mr. J and Mr. Cacciatore.
Mr. J.
My forgiveness is also extended for your inappropriate attributed motives.
I forgive you for being such a dog turd dickhead.
For having to go through years of my pictures, videos, texts, and erroneously piece together your deceitful, damning version of what really happened and who I am.
More like eggs erroneously.
After so much availability and for so long, you were finally able to make the circle fit into a square.
Mary Jane says, no holes, broken glass doors, nothing. May we are all forgiven.
I forgive your antics, theatricals, ludicrous comments to make sure the world got their money's worth while something with your ignorant pitchforks and burning torches, hoping for the best from you, which is my worst. Instead of dropping the mic, Mr. J, you dropped the bat.
You dropped the bat? Why? Like, oh my God. Like, let's say I kill someone with a scythe, right? I don't think I would work that in as some sort of wordplay. Like, Mr. J, you skip the scythe.
Hey, Mr. J.
What a fucking idiot.
For the yelling, finger pointing, and intense underlining to force your theatricals and fantastics on the jury by using imaginary space adventures and fictional characters to blind and bedazzle them with your far, far away from the truth dramatizations.
Yeah, I took personal offense when they had a classic 1970s era figure of Luke and Leia playing out the drama of Sarah and George. And the fact they were able to find such a small suitcase.
Yeah.
Breathtaking.
In all of your pieced together productions, I forgive you most for never seeing the light in people. Their human goodness.
Hold on. Starseed says she hated being compared to Darth Vader. Is that a true fact? Did somebody refer to her as Darth Vader?
Oh, did the state do that? I bet. That's probably
If
the
it
far,
happened,
far away.
I forgot, but because I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, don't give a fuck about the franchise. But that is hilarious. Thank you for confirming, Starseed. Jesus, that's funny.
In all of your pieced together productions, I forgive you the most for never seeing the light in people. Their human goodness, humor, and big hearts. Honor and big hearts. You wake up to seek out the opposite, to condemn, to take lives in your own way. Well,
Judge Krennic wakes up every morning like, who can I fuck over today? But also, really quick, somebody make me this meme of like Obi-Wan and Anakin is like, oh, it's over, Anakin. I've got the high ground. But that's Krennic as Obi-Wan, and Sarah is,
oh my God,
is Anakin. He gets his ass sliced in half.
Someone do that and send it to fistfulpodcast@gmail.com.
Please do that for me. I beg you.
See the good that does exist in all of us inherently and unforced, even as the proud Mr. J stated, quote, the kicked dog that bites, end quote. Mr. J, who kicked the dog in the first place. Oh, that's a question. Mr. J, who kicked the dog in the first place?
The victim of the murder?
In my wisdom, it's usually best to leave sleeping dogs lie.
In my wisdom.
Then they don't bite.
Right. So if you're going to ask who kicked the dog and then follow it up with don't kick the dog, the first question implies the dog's already been kicked. Who kicked the dog? Question mark. Implication? Sent. Inference received. The dog was kicked. Sarah says, don't kick the dog.
Yep. My gold goes out to the jury for not understanding my cracks from being blinded from the injustice and malpractice in all of the judicial and prosecutorial prosecutorial errors, the very apparent violations of my constitutional rights during my case and entire trial, which caused mass confusion and dysfunction.
So it sounds like Sarah is spreading some of the gold that she used to repair herself to basically everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, jury, take a little stitch. Yeah, of course, it's holding my ass together. And was I worth it in the first place? No. Thomas Mahoney says, I'm sure all of the pleasure in their lives vacated the premises long ago. But I would love to imagine the prosecutors read these letters in their office to the whole staff while high-fiving and making out.
Oh, 100%. Like, they go to happy hour and just, like, read them.
Yeah, and not for nothing. I'm sure they do, because they're humans and nobody is that, hopefully, I should say, nobody is that devoid of humor. But I was at a job where I shared an office with a person I called the Hog Beast.
Yep.
Who decided to give the address to her prison pen pals of the
office
place that I worked. Mm-hmm. And since I got the mail, I got to take a lot of prison poetry. Just,
Yoink.
I lost it. But like the amount of people, whatever. I don't know why I started telling that story.
Because we go around going to happy hour reading these letters.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's the thing.
They're having orgies.
You would have to be completely bereft of humanity not to like get a copy of this and be like, guys, get in here. Like grab coffee and a donut. This is going to be
This is going to be good.
Yeah.
It's Sarah Boone.
Everybody at the Orange County Jail is doing the cha-cha slide right now. Yeah, they haven't stopped since her sentencing.
Yeah. I forgive the jury truly for being weary from this confusion and dysfunction, also from being hungry and tired and wanting to go home to their families after being away in full capacity for 2 weeks. I understand.
She compares her jury members to like the Jews wandering the desert for 40 years. Like, I'm so sorry you had to be hungry and tired. Like, they weren't taking lunch breaks. There was no snack machine in the jury break room. Like, oh, I'm so sorry you had to sit through this, like...
Yeah, and it's not like it took them days to deliberate. It was like 40 minutes.
Yeah, and like there was no pizza delivered to that room. Give me a break.
From this and their brash, misguided, corrupted decision, I was wrongfully judged a murderer instead of a survivor. For this, all is forgiven. For this, I can still survive and stand tall, having an even greater, the greatest opportunity to finally be understood in the Supreme Court for my appeal. I didn't lose. God just wanted me to win in a different way. Freedom is forgiveness. Heart. She made a heart.
That is so fucking delusional. This, again, I'm sorry if you're not a locals person, but this... No better exemplifies this than like when Cyrax ran up on Music Biz Marty, got his ass stomped into the ground,
literally
ran back home with a broken nose and bloodied face and claimed victory.
Yeah.
This is running into like if in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, when he knocked over all those bikers' bikes and instead of letting him sing Tequila and become a hero, they just beat the ever-loving shit out of him.
Yep. Yeah. So here we go into the forgiving herself now.
Oh, finally.
In the end.
Where was that ever going to come? You got to serve the last slice of pizza to yourself.
Well, I don't know if it's the last. It's still page 23.
God, I hope so.
In the end, I forgive myself for not choosing my life sooner, for not being more brave, vigilant, bolder, and outspoken, stronger mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. For being hopeless, desperate, simple-minded, weak, and inexperienced. I forgive myself for not realizing I was enduring a life of domestic violence and that the vicious cycle of never ends.
Right. But we've talked about this before. It's a very philosophical concept where you don't realize you're the frog in the boiling milk until it's boiling. Yeah. I don't believe that Sarah was the frog. She was the milk and George was the frog.
Yeah.
She's like, I never realized or recognized, despite decades of empirical evidence, like, don't tip your hand and say, well, I was just so stupid
Yeah.
and unaware of myself.
Yeah. I had nothing to compare to. I've never been hit by a man ever before in my life. I was raised hitting a woman was wrong and should never happen. No excuse.
Thomas says, fellas, I may be off here, but I don't think this lady is sincere about this forgiveness stuff.
No. I forgive myself for not escaping permanently, for not fighting back sooner to save myself.
For not killing George earlier. Because, like, but that's the implication, right? She fought back and George died. So she's like, I should have fought back sooner. Like, I should have waited 1 year instead of 5.
Or for me to finish my sentence.
Can't wait for that.
Now I have to start over. I forgive myself for not escaping permanently, for not fighting back sooner to save myself, my son, my dogs, home, and car. Having 20/20 hindsight, thinking of everything I could have done differently or better to avoid the outcome. I think about this every day since.
Right. So there was a biblical story about a king who was afraid of being poisoned. So he would take a shot of poison to build up an immunity. Problem was the poison was arsenic and you can't build up an immunity. It just builds up in your system.
Yeah. And so you kill yourself.
Right. That's what Sarah did. She ingratiated herself into this scumbag lifestyle, found herself a Renfield to her Dracula, and the rest wrote itself. But there's no way. I mean, that's the thing. There's no way around it, and there's no way you can impress that upon Sarah.
Right. I mean, I was a victim of domestic violence in the past when I was in high school. I didn't murder them. I learned that what was happening was bad because like she says, she'd never been hit before. And I have never been hit before by a man.
Right.
And so I learned that was not a good thing to do.
That's the thing, though. No matter how many times we have to have this old, U-shaped backed horse trotted out from the stable as like an excuse of like, well, my childhood was bad. I like statistically, nothing backs that up. Everybody has had to deal with something, and I guarantee, or ironic or not, or whether they felt like it could happen at any moment, everybody's like, I could snap. Mm-hmm. And that's the luxury that is afforded perpetrators over victims, because the victim of the crime, they don't get to, like, after they're dead, like launch a case for themselves or an appeal of their death. They're just dead.
Right.
But we, being, elevated, intelligent beings, go, well, like, everybody is deserving of due process, which I'm glad we have that, because I don't like that the idea that we can just flippantly throw human life away like the murderers do.
Right.
But it still chaps my fucking ass when everything, bar none, says guilty, but we have to spend 5 years and tens of thousands of JAC dollars to do it.
Yeah.
But it has to, because you can't be... We can't set up a system where it's like pick and mix, where we go like, usually we do this, but since you're a mega bitch, we're just going to like send you to jail.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
Also, of all the good days we had together, for him at least, while I was constantly in hyperdrive, high alert, and paranoid, making sure I did everything right all the time, I knew if not the great possibility I would be ended, as George threatened me with so many times before. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster, and no matter how grotesque he may become, I still loved, hoped, and forgave. I tried breaking the spell so he wouldn't be a monster anymore. I saw who he was inside. George made me then, now, and always love him for all of his cracks also. We made each other our own brilliant pieces of art from the cracks and repairs. Unfortunately, not all cracks can be.
Whatever. Starseed says that Sarah was not in a trap, she was the trap. And I have to agree.
Yeah.
It is as if a Venus flytrap gained elevated intelligence, and instead of like catching a fly and eating it, caught it, ate a little bit of it, like it got a little wobbly, opened its mouth up and was allowed to fly away, semi-heal up and then come back and repeat.
Yeah.
Like there's no, I mean, only in like Star Trek do you come across a life form like this where it's not a straight like leech situation where they come take what they need and then fall off, or like a mosquito and such a thing. Like it's the type of predator that catches its prey, lives off of its misery, its suffering, only to release it, but tag it to know where it can go back for more. Like if the clown from It was like semi-low effort and not really worried about all the cosmic bullshit and would just show up every once in a while to the same 10 cows it had trackers on and go like, oh, time to milk it.
Yeah. In all of my forgiveness, George is my greatest lesson and will forever be a part of me. I think of him every day and still speak to him when alone on the rec yard.
On the radio, just like shortwave. George, are you there?
I ask his forgiveness and that he looks for me at the gates of heaven so I can tell him how sorry I am endlessly and that I've never stopped loving him in all of it and still.
I can't believe she thinks George is going to heaven based on the horrible things she said about him.
The stab wound, hello. When I first came to jail, I put my mat under my bed and cried all day and night for months, only falling asleep from being so exhausted with grief. I wrote him letters.
Thomas says she's the salt vampire. Yeah, classic TOS reference. Rachel says everything she claimed was done to her, she was doing to George and others. For example, George's occipital lobe was shattered and she went to the hospital. Yeah, that's the thing. It's a matter of not only delusion but projection. Mm-hmm. If you claim everybody around you is the thing that you are, I'm not sure what that does to the delusional mind, because I've seen it in true crime locale, regular life. It's always there. The person.
Isn't that kind of like, I mean, it's not probably not, but like that American Dad episode where Stan flips what happened to him versus what he thought.
Yes. Yeah. So like when. And that's the thing. It's a coping mechanism
100%.
for sure. You have to turn an absolute L into an ironclad win. And the only way to do that is to gaslight and rewrite reality, leaving the rest of us in our shared reality going, what? Like I'm doing now. I go, what?
Yeah. I wrote letters. I wrote his family and his daughters apologizing and asking for their forgiveness, but due to fear that my life or something would be jeopardized. Oh, sons would be jeopardized. I did not send. I am sorry. I cannot begin to fathom any of their grief and sadness. Forgive me.
I did not accept.
Almost everything reminds me of him. Seeing my stab wound every day, especially.
Yeah, everywhere I look, he's in the puffy clouds in the sky. He's in the water in the toilet. He's on the stab wound on my leg.
It truly reminds me all I really did live through. But George didn't.
Once.
George haunts me. He is everywhere. I believe because I do still care. I do still love him, think of him, and miss his laugh the most. In my heart, go ahead.
In a hilariously funny, perfect world, I would like to think like every night when Sarah's about to hit the bunk for the night, like George shows up covered in change with the handkerchief over his head like Jacob Marley. And he goes, Sarah!
Ooh.
I love that shit.
In my heart, I know he is with me and understands that this tragedy was not intentional.
Or hey, Marley.
I hope everyone can his family foremost. I did not mean for this to happen. Please wholeheartedly know that, and always, I would never.
Know that. Know that.
No malicious content.
Intentional. No malicious content. Know that. I don't. Know that.
Forgive me. Forgive me, George. Forgive me, Torres family. Forgive me, Judge Kranick. To the entire planet, forgive me.
The entire planet. God
the whole
damn.
planet.
Like she's fucking the Caesar of Rome.
I graciously and nobly, honorably, something terrible writing, ask for consideration, for forgiveness to be extended instead of judgment, for reconciliation and restoration for all of us to move forward.
I mean, I already forgave you guys. Can't you do me the fucking solid?
Right.
It's like when someone buys you coffee one week and they go, that's now your turn. I don't think it works like that.
No. My apology is profuse and ceaseless. Allow me, please, to brush off the muck, wipe the blood off my face, and fix the cuts in my skin. I ask for understanding in what really happened and for how long. For second chances, repentance, and redemption, to advocate for all domestic violence survivors, to help them overcome, heal, still hope, always to make their voices heard, to confidently walk with all of their scars on the outside and inside.
Like, what a grandiose way to describe that when, like, I don't know, man. Again, like, it feels as though this case, how do I describe this? Like, with most criminal cases, it's a very simple plot, and there's no graph or spatial analogy I can give to it because you just can't. Like, most crimes follow a thread where, like, let's say that's the pendulum, right? It's just swinging back and forth where we go, the evidence and everything. This is like one of those science toys with the magnet in the middle that'll never hit the center, so it just squiggles all around.
Yeah.
It doesn't know where it's going. Every place it's been has nothing to do with the last place. And it's just that frantic, chaotic, random chance movement just encapsulated into one small 103-pound drunk.
Yes. To help them not ever become a casualty of domestic violence as so many others, to stop the abuse and maltreatment before it's too late, there's always hope. You can survive. In my soft-spoken conclusion, I ask this: would I be the darling mother, celebrated woman of the year, if it were I who died? How many daughters, mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, nieces, and friends have been because they did?
That was the most, in my personal opinion, the most stinging line from her time up on the stand.
Yes.
Like to say, sure, George is dead and you're all sad, but what if it were me, right?
Yeah. What if I was the one who died?
It's the exact opposite of like, oh, there's a guy in a suitcase. Well, go look at Eli. He's illegal.
Right.
It's like unfathomable. Like it's bad at everything. It's bad writing. It's bad logic. It's bad human. It's bad everything. Mm-hmm. And it's so bizarre and crazy. It feels like this shouldn't exist. But like cases like this come along probably like every 100 years or something like that, where the person is so crazy, but not by a legal definition.
Right.
That it's not just like, okay, it's Jared Murray. Go spend the rest of your life in an insane asylum because you are insane. Mm-hmm. She was deemed competent, could have been pro se, but here we are with something that clearly doesn't read as like human.
Yeah.
Like this is something written by AI from 8 months ago.
Yeah. Like
when DALL-E first came out. If it could write a fuck you letter to a judge, this is that.
That's true. Yeah. I am a survivor. Learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke the oppressor, defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. Isaiah 1:17. All-encompassing, protect the abused. Sarah Boone, 12-24.
Jesus Christ. Like everybody got it. Like everybody's got to throw in a Bible quote at the end. If you're worth your jailhouse lawyer's salt.
Yep. Whew. I've done more talking on this episode than I think I've ever talked before.
But that's why we come back to cases like this and why most people are into true crime, unless you're like a weird gore hound. It's why you come here. You're hoping, like I am, that one day you'll get enough information, you'll receive enough data to see into the minds of this kind of weirdo, and you go, oh, okay. Because you see and feel that catharsis a lot during the day. People tell you stories that are relatable to you as a human being via interpersonal communication. I feel like a lot of us in the true crime community are trying to crack this specific nut. Same people in the lolcow community, all the trolls. Everybody wants to know why, and beyond that, wants the why to be conceptualized and integrated into the person who doesn't know it. But the thing is, it's impossible. You cannot get blood from a stone. You cannot get self-awareness and recognition and ownership out of Sarah Boone, Daryl Brooks, Nancy Brophy, Diane Downs, you name it.
Yeah, you're right.
We're just stuck in this holding pattern of a feedback loop of delusion that only gets stronger the harder you fight it.
Yeah.
Forces equally come to react with each other. And some people could just... I'll liken it to this too. Like, a lot of people get online and do stuff, and the feedback from people online hurts them and they can't do it. Others take it, they let it roll off their back, they don't address it, whatever. Others blow up at it. And it's only when you react to it that it will react in kind. Mm-hmm. So whether you're a lolcow, whether you're Sarah Boone, Kenny versus Spenny, that sort of thing. The harder you fight against the thing, the harder that thing is going to fight against you. And I guarantee there's a bigger number of people involved in the thing, whatever it is, than you.
Yeah. Thomas says, I'm going to say it. I feel forgiven by proxy just for reading that.
Right. I feel like that's a good silver lining to this episode too, is all the forgiveness is handed out. You can count yourself included. I felt a little bad after watching, the sentencing and not being forgiven, but here we are, and I feel much lighter.
Yeah, she forgave social media, and that's us.
Slanderous trolls.
Yeah. Rachel says, I feel Munchausen by proxy. Why do we care so much? And Mary says, we care because we want to understand but can't.
All right, it's twofold. It's two sides of this coin. Maybe there's more nuanced takes on it, but I'm going to say this. We want to know the why, and we want the person to feel something. Like that's what most humans get most upset about. When someone owns up, like Jared Murray again, once he owned up to committing the murder, even though he tells that old detective everything and horrifies him into oblivion, it doesn't have the catharsis of knowing but also feeling. We want Sarah to know and feel. She knows. She's not stupid. She's delusional, and she's crafting this as a response to knowing the reality.
Well, that's what you wanted from her.
Yeah, that's what I want. I and everybody else, I guarantee wants them to feel.
Right.
Cops bring it up all the time. Remorse goes a long way. And that's true. Because if they do give remorse, you then have the option to go, great, I feel it's genuine and I believe you.
Hello, the plea deal that she could have gotten. All she needed to do was admit what she did.
It's like that recent case where that young girl was driving home drunk and killed a golf cart full of people. Didn't kill them. There was a husband and wife on their wedding day. Wife gets killed and the husband is in constant pain for the rest of his life. And she's like, I don't want to go to jail. And I was after it's been done, there's no more that you can do.
Right. Yeah. This episode's going to end with the feds breaking into the studio for your crimes against Sarah, you social media tycoons.
Listen, I'm a scoundrel and there's no way you can stop me. I'm exploiting this for all that I can, which is essentially very little.
Starseed says, I just keep wondering what she was doing in the morning hours leading up to finally calling the police. What her schemes and cleanup might have been, setting the scene, as it were.
Right. Yeah, because she called Brian first, and that definitely came after all of the staging, whatever she could do that she thought would help. But again, here's another thing. It's like when you're making a video game or anything creatively that other people will use. You know how what you're making should work, so you're not going to try and break it. That's the point of beta testing.
Yeah.
You have to farm that shit out to all and sundry who don't know how it works to find the bugs.
Right.
But and that's where Sarah found her demise, was like she probably found George dead and ran that program, tried to create the game of this will get me off scot-free, but no beta testing. So all she had was her flawed delusional logic. And then when that didn't work, it was down to like battered spouse or whatever Hail Mary she tried to pull at the 11th hour.
Right. And yeah, Thomas says, how about this? We don't even know that George got in the suitcase on his own. That's just her story.
But I'm not sure how, again, that you're right. How did that go down? But since George wouldn't say boo against her when the cops showed up and they took him to prison, if she said, get in the suitcase, George, I believe he would have done it without...
Oh, yeah, he would have done it.
Fuss.
Right, especially if they were drinking.
Because, like, how could you come down the stairs and see him halfway into the suitcase after hiding in the shower?
Right. I think her son did the puzzle, and she used that prop to craft her Sunday Funday story.
Totally.
Yeah.
The narrative of a good day has come up so often in recent true crime things. Like the amount of people who said it was a good day only to be like, fast forward to the end of the interrogation and be like, stand up, you're charged with first degree murder.
They're taking the Sarah Boone defense. We had a good day.
Or that one guy, we're going to do him on the show eventually. I can't remember his name, but he was like a medic in the army in Iraq. He was like, had PTSD and stuff and just pulled like a Sarah Boone, essentially. Like he killed a guy, but then was able to like justify to himself, like, I had to do it. Otherwise I was going to be the one who died. And then that kick in the dick of like, imagine how sad you'd be if I had died instead of George. Sure, you're sad now, but what if it was me? 10 times worse. Like Kim Jong-un levels of like a whole country crying at the roadside at force of gunpoint.
Right. Yeah, Brick. They may have done it before and it went wrong this time.
Yeah, and that's part of this pattern, right? Is you'll never know the truth. We'll get the police's side, aka the prosecution, and the defense's side. Where's the truth? Don't know.
Yeah.
All we can go off is physical evidence and narrative, and the physical evidence is going to have to be interpretive to weave a narrative. So we're spoiled now because a lot of places have CCTV and you can see the crime from start to finish. And although that gives you great insight into the act itself, nothing goes into the backstory of the people, their dynamic, the tension in their lives, etc., like we got with Sarah.
Right.
But there was Sarah's letter to Kranik, as insulting as when she read it IRL on the stand. Welcome, Big Salmon.
Hey, Salmon.
But yikes. Like I have respect for everyone in the criminal justice system that isn't a cop, and by that I mean like, if you're a criminal and you get caught by a beat cop, that beat cop isn't ever going to get a letter. He's never going to, unless like the person is severely mentally ill and wants to take out everyone who's ever wronged them. It's going to be like your judges, your prosecutors, people with higher status jobs that get probably an unending amount of this sort of pseudo quasi fan mail.
Yeah, right. Probably.
like, yikes.
Trying to make sense 1,001 ways won't work.
Yeah, because when it doesn't make sense, like when the truth speaks for itself, or rather when the scene speaks for itself and all the evidence you've collected, there's nothing you can do to rework something that has been captured.
Right.
Like in the days before all this shit, a lot of, like, because it's a 50% closure on crimes that are detected. And imagine before we had CCTV and all that shit, we just go like, well, you'd follow your gut, and a lot of innocent people hung that way.
Right. I think you should save this one on your back pocket for a episode. You should have a look at the 90s case, Peter Plumley Walker case in New Zealand, a BDSM case that went wrong.
There are so many of those.
I'm sure there are, but this one's in New Zealand from Brick.
There are. The extreme of this is David What's His Nuts, and it's a bummer that I share a name with him, but the toy box killer. But I think it was like Bob something, like he was some sort of BDSM dude who. That's the thing, man. You're. It's weird out there. People have weird fetishes and weird things, and sometimes they're just weird for the weirdness of it. Sometimes they hide something sinister. I want you, if nothing else, if you're a true crime fan, to sort of take stock of the red flags of people and be self-aware enough, and don't go, well, I'll cut them slack because we've known them for so long, or because we're blood related. Like, get your guard up, right?
Yeah. Oh, we need to check out his mustache too. Apparently he has quite
I love
the
a good mustache, as you can probably tell. But that's it. That is the latest from Sarah. The case has been officially marked closed. So will we have more content from her in the future? I don't know. But moral of the story is, since true crime never stops, we've got tons to go over. And I've got some good stuff coming up. So
my request to get the Cassandra's
Blanc.
Yeah, his raw footage is in progress, so maybe that's a good sign.
We'll see. We're trying to get raw footage from the places, and I'll have Chris to cut it down. But yeah, there are so many. The one I have planned next is especially insane, because it's one of those ones where in the comment section, when the raw footage is posted, it's split between like the detectives doing a shitty job or like doing awesome. Or like with Stiven's fat detective in red shirt.
Why,
Stiven? I don't know. It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, especially when the crime was committed 5 years ago, which I understand we're essentially doing here. But I'm not getting paid, and my opinion doesn't, like, nobody's freedom hinges on my thoughts, which is why we get to do this.
Why, Stiven?
A hair is there, Stiven. A hair's there. You ever shoot them guns, Stiven? You never shot them guns. You tell me they bought them guns. You never shot them guns.
You like girls?
You like girls, Stiven? You never see a fine girl walking down the street and you go, that looks good, Stiven. God damn it, Stephen McDaniels. That's all I got for you, but
this is a nightmare
that we can never wake up from. Thank you for showing up. We'll see you in next Wednesday for Nostalgia.
No,
next
it's Christmas.
Friday for more true crime.
Next Wednesday's Christmas.
Oh yeah.
We'll see.
Not Christmas. Maybe Christmas Eve. I don't know. We'll
have Trung here
and do shit for the holiday. People don't know that, who he is. Anyway, next time we see you, we'll see you. I appreciate it. We got more true crime coming up because that never stops. And smell you later, guys.
Stiven. Bye.
Bye, Stiven.
no reaction.
You don't have Riz. For the try to
Fistful of Podcasts Radio.